me and Brad had several incidents in the house where we were trying to essentially get back at each other for different things. Where he'd piss me off for doing something, and then I'd do something to piss him off, and then back and forth, and like they didn't show any of it. So yeah,
What? You've had that knee injury on TUF, and you fought in the semi-final with it. Fast forward a few months, just how bad was it leading into the final against Brad Katona?
by the time we got to the finale, I was good. 3 months of physical therapy after I got home, and then a full training camp. And by the time I got into the fight with Katona, my knee was good. So it wasn't the best during the semifinals fight with Rico. It was still, I had just heard it a couple weeks prior. So, but yeah, they gave me stem cells too on the show. So I think
Oh.
that probably helped because that stuff's expensive.
Yeah, I heard. Joe Rogan raves about stem cells quite a bit, doesn't he?
Yeah, I was fortunate. I was just lucky. I was like, how much does the shot cost? They were like, about $10,000. I was like, I feel pretty good about this.
That's class. That's good to hear, though. I mean, at least you kind of getting your way back because obviously, how many months now was it until in between filming the show and then, of course, finishing your semi-final bout and then the final? So like 5 months, 6 months.
So we got home maybe early March or middle of March. We started filming in February, and then we were home in March. I don't remember exactly when, but we had. I mean, and the fight was August, so we had months and months, And I needed it to just do the physical therapy and get healed up, and so I was appreciative of having the time because it took me, like I said, like 3 months of PT and then a full 13-week training camp. I literally finished PT and then the next week I started training camp and was a little bit nervous about it. Like, well, shit, man, you guys haven't let me like grapple or anything this whole time, and now I'm just gonna be cleared to go. And so luckily, like, I mean, I felt real good when we started training camp, and my knee felt good. And I was kind of anticipating having issues with it or have to baby it, but I really didn't. So I was fortunate. I think those stem cells might have something to them.
Oh man, that's amazing. Now, sticking with Brad Katona, you both didn't really get on very well. You'd sort of stated that you didn't like him as a person during the show. Were there any words you exchanged after the fight? Because you did kind of have a little moment between yourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I just said, good fight. I respected him after his semifinals fight, which I didn't get to see live. I was in the back about the fight right after him, and they didn't have TVs in the back, so I didn't get to see that fight live. So I literally watched that. Obviously I do like a lot of film study before I fight somebody if I can, and I didn't get to see his fight with Timmer until what was that, 2 weeks before the finale. So once I saw that fight, I was like, all right, well, when this guy is forced to fight, he'll fight, and he's tough. I still think that everything I said prior to that holds true. I think anybody that goes back and watches a lot of his fights, especially in his run in the Brave promotion, he just did a lot of holding guys, and I just felt like he didn't really want to fight. He just wanted to like play the game and win decisions. And I still think my criticism is true, but I think when he's forced to fight, he obviously, can fight, and he's tough and durable. His gas tank is something else, man. I really thought he would start breaking as I try to just walk him down for 15 minutes, but he never wilted. So more power to him, man. I definitely got respect for him as a fighter. Maybe not as a person, but as a fighter, I got respect for him.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, watching it, it was such a fast-paced fight, and it was kind of crazy because it was so close as well. It's like the first half of rounds, you were kind of like dictating it, and you were landing the bigger shots, and then he would kind of like, you know, almost gain some kind of upper, was it almost like a second win than the later half of the round, which was kind of impressive, really. Scoring it was an absolute nightmare, I must admit. Obviously, you felt like you won, though, right?
No, I actually thought I lost.
Oh, really?
Well, I just know that the scoring criteria the judges go off of, the number one thing they're supposed to look at is damage. The number two thing is effective striking and grappling. And so I thought on the first round when I watched it back, but the second and third round, I think I won more of the round. Like, like you pause it halfway through the round, I'm winning. I've won the first half of the round. But the parts that he won, I feel like he did more damage. Obviously, I kind of got rocked in the second round where my foot kind of gave out on me for a second. And then the third round, my eye swelled up, and he landed like 3 or 4 uppercuts like in a row from the clinch. And so, I mean, if you're basing it off of the criteria that the judges are supposed to be basing it off of, then I would have scored it 2 rounds for him and 1 round for myself. So I actually wasn't surprised by the decision. Like, I didn't think I won the fight after the fight. So yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's kind of surprising. I thought, yeah, round 1 was kind of like the closest round, but yeah, I think you were right. He definitely got 2, and then he just kind of had that like, momentum shift in round number 3, really. But yeah, it is what it is. We learn, we grow, and of course we move on. But as we all know and saw, Dana has come out and said that you would be getting that contract with the UFC. So congrats on that. How did you feel when you heard this news? And did you expect it?
No, I didn't really expect it. It was just a roller coaster of a night. I mean, to lose the fight. Obviously, I usually take like a week of like just being in a funk where I can start to really digest it and try to pull some positive things out of it and decide, okay, well, I got to keep moving forward, get up. So, try to get as much out of a loss as you can. But it usually takes me about a week of just being in a funk. And so obviously I was pretty upset after the fight. They shipped me off to the hospital to get a CT scan. And so I'm sitting in the Boston hospital for like 5 or 6 hours with my brother who's in my corner. And first thing he tells me, he's on his phone, and he was like, hey, you guys won fight of the night. I was like, well, that's cool at least. And then to hear Dana after at the press conference, and really it was, I think, so many fans just chirping at him on social media and stuff. And so that's what I kind of said on Twitter. I was like, thank you guys for like, annoying this guy enough to give me a contract. Because at the end of the day, I just, I think I can put on a lot of good fights and with what I got left in my career, and hopefully get some more bonuses. And yeah, it should be fun moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, people were comparing it to Stephan Bonner and Forrest Griffin, and that's some compliment to have.
Yeah.
So, I mean, would you like to fight before the end of the year is up then, or are you still pretty banged up?
No, I definitely want to fight again this year. I just went to the doctor yesterday, actually, because I've been having the only thing the CT scan showed. Everyone thought I broke my orbital, but my orbital wasn't broke. But my nose was broke, and I think that's why I kind of went to the eye and everything. But it's like broke pretty bad. Like I have a deviated septum really bad, and so now I'm gonna have to do a surgery. I can't even breathe out of one side of my nostril, and so hopefully, from what I'm hearing, the recovery is only a couple of weeks, 2 to 4 weeks maybe. So I'm hoping I can still fight this year. I'd really like to get one more this year to end the year on a good note and head into next year with a little bit of momentum at least. So I've been kind of hounding my managers like, guys, I want to fight in December. So I'm hoping to get on one of those shows in December.
Yeah, December seems like the perfect month to me. I think there's at least 3 events, so fingers crossed. I mean, sticking with sort of the TUF 31, one thing I wanted to know was, the show had the UFC vets versus the sort of fighters who are kind of yet to make that leap into the big stage. And it kind of received some criticism from fans, because the gap in experience between the two just seemed quite massive, and they obviously decided to do those kind of teams. Did you feel that it was a good idea from the showrunners to divide the teams in this way, or do you think that they should have perhaps maybe mixed it up a little bit like previous seasons?
I mean, the thing about some of that criticism is, like, what do you think happens when you get signed to the UFC? Like, you fight a UFC vet, your first fight, most likely. Most likely you're fighting a guy who has experience in the UFC. Landon Quinones, who's on the prospect team, is fighting tomorrow night. He's fighting a good guy, too. And it's like, it's either sink or swim when you get to the UFC. So I didn't really see, like, some of that criticism I felt was a little bit strange. I do think that I don't know if it was deliberate or not, but the veterans they got for the show, it wasn't like a bunch of guys who showed they couldn't compete in the UFC, like at that level. Like, most of the guys had won fights in the UFC. A lot of them had solid, like, 2-2 or 5-4 or whatever. Like, they weren't like washout. You see that sometimes when guys come into the UFC, they'll have like 2 fights, they'll get blown away both times, and that'll be it. Well, that's a very different veteran than guys who went 5-4 against some guys that are, fought top 10 guys. And so I do feel like they brought in some good veterans. And yeah, I don't know, I guess I see some of the criticism, but at the end of the day, like, if those guys want to get signed to the UFC, they should be able to beat us. So yeah, but I do think that some of those prospect guys like Trevor Wells, Mondo Gutierrez, Landon, and a few others, like, there's some guys on that prospect side that will get in the UFC, I believe, and will have good careers. I think Trevor Wells at 125, he's going to have a hell of a career. So yeah, I don't know. Some of the criticism was like, I saw some of it too, like, oh, well, what do they expect? But it's like, what would happen if these guys got signed up to Contender Series tomorrow? They'd be fighting UFC veterans right off the bat.
Yeah.
So,
and especially with recently, when you've had a few people come off of Contender Series and completely blow ranked guys away. That Diego Lopez was a prime example of that. And then the guy who fought Jack Della Maddalena, I've forgotten his name now. People could easily close to winning decisions against those guys. So it just comes to show, doesn't it? But yeah, I can see both sides from it.
Yeah, I mean, I do think experience matters a lot. But, like, do you remember back, like, when they had, like, everybody was on testosterone days? Like Vitor Belfort and some of those guys that were doing TRT, and they were blowing everybody out of the water, because the big advantage of being a veteran of the sport who's had 30 pro fights is that experience. But the disadvantage is, I bet I feel a lot different after a hard day's work than you do. Like, the recovery is a little slower, and I train with a bunch of 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds, and, like, I gotta get there a little early to get some extra stretching in. Like, there is, like, and so their advantage is the youth, and that fast twitch muscle, fibers are still firing on all cylinders, and so there's advantages to both things. But so yeah, I mean, I wish I was 22 again.
Yeah, ditto. I second that. Just want to give a quick. We've got a few fan questions which I'm going to go through. A quick shout out to our brother Ash, who runs a channel with us, who wants to just mention that he predicted during his TUF review shows that you would go all of the way. So he just wanted to send that little message over to you. This one's from Breezy though. He wants to know, were there any cutscenes that were a personal highlight to you? Scenes that may have been cut from the TUF show that didn't quite make it?
There were they didn't show a ton of stuff.
Really?
I was really surprised at some of the stuff they didn't show.
Wow.
There were funny things that happened, pranks that were played. Yeah, they didn't really show. And the thing was, like, there were so many great characters on the show that you never really got the time to get to know, because it was such, like, a cut and dry, like, okay, here's our weekly fight. Here's the B tape for this guy's back home, the home footage he took. Here's the one for this guy. Here's some training footage. Here's some more Conor McGregor proper 12 plug. And then here's the fight, and it was just very like formulaic. And I guess that's been a criticism of the Ultimate Fighter for a long time. So I was surprised, like, honestly, when I left the show, and I think this sentiment that with a lot of the guys was we thought Jason Knight was going to come out of this show as like a superstar. Like, he was so funny, and like he would say the funniest things, and his personality was contagious, and he was just a great character. I was like, this guy's going to make for great TV. And then like they showed like it was pretty minimal, like they didn't really like me and Brad had several incidents in the house where we were trying to essentially get back at each other for different things, where he'd piss me off for doing something and then I'd do something to piss him off, and then back and forth, and like they didn't show any of it. So yeah, they missed the boat, man. They really did.
Oh, that's so crazy. And I completely agree with you that it is kind of, they stick to this same formula of editing through every single episode. And watching it, I'm like, why didn't you just bring it back to the TUF of old? Like, the Rampage versus Rashad season where you had pranks where people putting chickens in cars and all sorts of nonsense like that. And I just don't get why they just don't bring that fun side out. People would be like you said, so much more popular.
I do think that like the nature of the sport and the athletes that participate in it has changed. Like, people take it a lot more serious today. You're not going to get if you're going to get 16 fighters who are drinking hard liquor every night and they're fighting 4 days later, like, you're not going to get that anymore with like real professional fighters like they had in the early seasons. But at the same time, like, there was a lot of stuff that happened in the house, and like it's fun, just interesting conversations, especially with the veterans, but even with the prospects. And then just funny one-liners that were said and pranks that were played or stuff that was done. And yeah, man, the show, I don't know. And even the producers that were on the show with us, like the ones that we talk to every day, they listen to us 24 hours a day, our little microphones that we wear, necklaces. And I had made a comment similar to the stuff we're talking about right now, like criticism of the show and why people aren't so stoked about it anymore. And he pulled me to the side one day and was like, hey, I heard you say this. I just wanted to let you know that we don't have any say in how they edit this thing. We've gone to them several times and said, maybe you should try this, maybe you should try that. And we always get the door shut on our face, and they go into their room and they edit it the way they edit it. And we don't have a say in the final product, and it's been frustrating for us. And I don't know, I don't know who's doing the editing. We didn't meet those people, but I do think they dropped the ball. This could have been a lot better season. And that was the general sentiment from all the guys. We have a little group chat. We talk to each other still, and that's pretty much what everybody's been saying is like, man, there were so many great moments that they missed because of this kind of stick to the formula kind of plan. And it is what it is, though. But yeah, there was a lot that happened that people didn't get to see, unfortunately.
I feel like we got a bit of a Justice League scenario going on here. I think we need the real full proper cut of the Ultimate Fighter season 31. Maybe we just give it the Cody Gibson cut. We'll call it that.
Okay, here's a couple. So there was a night. Timur Valiev is practicing Muslim, and so he would be the first one up in the morning to do his morning prayers, and so he would go to bed early, earlier than most of the other guys. And one night he went to bed, and some of the prospects were sitting around the kitchen, and there were a couple of them that were loud and obnoxious and kind of didn't watch their volume. And so Timur comes out and he says, like, it is the nicest guy ever, like, guys, please keep it down. And it was Mondo Gutierrez, who I love Mondo. He's a good dude. But he said, like, he was talking to Mondo, and I don't think Timur meant it in the same way as if I was to say something like this where it would seem like a jab at you. But he essentially told Mondo, he's like, Mondo, I know you're out of the competition, but I've got to rest. I've still got to fight. And he was more like saying it like matter of fact, you know, like his English wasn't great. So he was just trying to get that across. Like, I know you're done, but I've got to train, man. And you're keeping me up. And anyway, when he said that, it did. If I would have said that, it would have been a jab, or someone else, like an American, it would have been like screw you, you're not in the competition. But I don't really feel like Timmer said it that way. But that's how it was perceived. And then Aaron McKenzie jumped in on his teammates' behalf and was like, "Fuck you" to Timmer. And then Timmer comes back in and they get into a thing. They didn't show any of that. And then I told the guys, I was like, "Hey guys, listen, there's certain rules you live by in life. Like, you know, you don't do certain things. You don't, I don't know, like you open the door for a lady. Like there's certain rules that you have to live by. And one of those rules is don't mess with people from Dagestan, man. Like that's just not something you want to do." And the producers were like, that was like the best line of the show. And that didn't get played either. Between me and Brad, there were a lot of incidents. Brad was really good at manipulating the system. He had been on the show before, and so he knew how to get things that other contestants, fighters, participants couldn't get. And he somehow found his way into like 3 heavy blankets and a bunch of pillows and all this stuff. And we were all like on these ratty beds. He had like a Tempur-Pedic bed. I don't know how that happened, but anyway, he would always leave the window open at night, and me and Hunter Azure would wake up like at 2 a.m. and just like freezing our ass off. And, like the desert cold is like a different type of cold too. And so we were getting pissed off about that. And so me and Jason Knight took his mattress one day and we switched it with one of the other ones to see if he would notice. And he noticed. And I eventually had to fess up and be like, "Oh, all right, man, sorry, I took your mattress." But that was a funny incident. There was another incident with a blanket that I had cut weight in because he had so many. And I washed it for him, but he wasn't happy about that. But yeah, there was a lot of back and forth with me and him, and just like, you're going to screw me over, I'm going to screw you over back. And they didn't play any of that. So
No
maybe
way.
it was for the better. I don't know.
Oh, but that would have hyped up your fight even more so. I mean, I was pumped for it anyway because of that one interaction that they showed. Like, that was kind of enough. But I think if you added all that on top, just to think, you know, just kind of, it's such a shame, man. It's good to hear. I've really enjoyed these stories. Man.
Yeah, there was a lot of good ones, but yeah.
Okay. This one's a quick one, but Angus wants to know, would you rather fight 100 duck-sized Brad Katonas or 1 Brad Katona-sized duck?
Well, I mean, Brad Katona's not that big of a guy. I don't want to fight 100 duck-sized Brad Katonas.
Yeah.
No, that does not sound good. That doesn't sound good at all. I'd fight 1 duck who's just a big-ass duck. But Brad Katona's still a small guy, so I'd still have a reach advantage.
Okay.
And I don't have to try to take out 100 Brad Katonas, miniature Brad. I'm going with the 1 duck.
One duck. All right, there we go. 1 duck. That's a classic one. Oh, all right, amazing stuff. Hang on. Oh, actually, one from Breezy was, what was McGregor like in person when not on camera? That'd be a quick one.
He was just really, to me, he seemed like he had, like, I hate to say this because I don't actually know, but he just seemed bipolar or something. Like you didn't know what you were gonna get with him. Like one day he would come in and he was like, I've arrived. You know the type of person I'm talking about who's like, I'm here. The room needs to all stop and acknowledge my presence and my existence, and like I'm the center of attention. And he always had like a lot of yes men around him who laughed at every joke, even if it wasn't funny. And, you know, like, and it's just like, some days he was like that. And it was like, for me, that was really obnoxious. And then other times he would just like hide out in the background, not say anything, be really calm and nice and cordial. And so for me, it was just like, you never knew what you were going to get when that guy would show up at the house. The first set of quarterfinal fights, he came to the house. That was the night that Mondo cut his hair,
Mm.
and he stayed until like 3 a.m. getting drunk. And I was pissed off because I was like, dude, we got to fight tomorrow. Or actually, it was the night before weigh-in. And so that's like the worst night of sleep. You know, you're like, especially if you're like me, you start the cut the night before, you cut maybe half the weight, then you try to get some sleep and wake up early the next day to cut the other half. And that's just kind of a lot of fighters these days are doing it that way. And and we didn't have doors to like have any noise cancellation. And they gave us earplugs, but I have such bad cauliflower that I couldn't get them in my ears very well. And so I was just getting pissed that he was just running through the house, being loud, and just couldn't sleep with him there. And so then right before the semifinals fights, he came over again the day before weigh-in. And I was like, not again, man. Why do you got to come the day before weigh-in? Come any other day, and I'll be fine. But and there was already, like, me and Conor had gotten into it. They say they didn't film it, but they didn't show it. When Rico came from behind and knocked out Hunter Azure, Conor ran around the back of the little seating area they have at the Apex there, and he ran by me. I was up on an elevated platform watching the fight. That's where they stood. We had a stand, and we had like this plexiglass in front of us, and he scales up it, slaps me in the face, and runs away. And I was just standing there like, holy shit. And I chased after him, and then they like held, like they wouldn't let anything happen. And then I was like, this is bullshit. Like, he can't just run up and slap me. And yeah, I think he was worried I was going to sue him after that because his attitude around me, like, you could tell he was just kind of nervous and like changed. But luckily for him, I'm not the lawsuit happy type of guy. So he doesn't have anything to worry about. I'm sure he's had some incidents in the past. Well, I know he's had some incidents in the past where he's lost quite a bit of money doing stupid things like that. But luckily for him, I'm not that kind of guy. So it is what it is, fair play. But yeah, he wasn't my favorite character after
that. Oh man, that's phenomenal. I mean, I guess a slap is a slap. It's just a little bit, you know, it's not nice. No one likes to get slapped, but at the same time, I guess you'd feel a bit of a dick if you just then sued afterwards, really, wouldn't you? It's not like you broke your phone or anything like that, you know.
Yeah. I did have like people tell me like, dude, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Somebody that rich hits you, slaps you, whatever, like take them for everything you can get. And I'm like, I thought about it, but I was like, nah, I don't know, man. That's just not how I operate and like think about things. And so I just chose like not to. I was like, nah, I don't want to be that guy. So it is what it is.
Fair. Good on you, man. Good on you. Now, I'm going to wrap this up then, because I believe you got to get home to your wonderful wife and kids. And of course, enjoy your weekend. Any final words before we wrap up?
No, just it's been cool. Like, just all the fans that have reached out to me. And I was in the UFC in 2014 and 2015, and social media wasn't quite what it is today. So it's been a different experience coming back now and like not being as known by a lot of newer fans or guys that aren't like hardcore fans. But it's been cool, you know, to hear stories from people, whether it be about adoption or about overcoming obstacles, and how, you know, in any way, shape, and form I motivated or inspired someone. Like, to me, that's been like the coolest part of this whole experience. Because, I mean, to Conor's point, we're here today and gone tomorrow. Like, we all are, you know, like, this is going to end for all of us. I'm not going to have guys like you hit me up to do fun interviews. Like, it's going to end. And when it does, like, it's not going to matter. Obviously, we all want to make as much money as we can while we're doing this in this game. But, like, the impact you leave on people is the most important thing we have in our lives. So, hearing from fans and stuff has been cool. I've had a lot of interesting conversations and just messages back and forth with people, and hearing different stories. And that's been the coolest part for me. So thank you to all you out there who are sending me that kind of stuff.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. And of course, if you haven't watched Cody fight before, or if you have and you haven't followed him on social medias, make sure you do, and the links will be in the description of this video. And of course, the Instagram and X handles were on the solo screen there, so do make sure you follow him and everything else. Right, Cody, let's get you home, brother. It's good speaking to you.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Good talking to you.
All right, peace out,
Take care.
Cody. Ciao, ciao.
We'll see you, man. Take care.